Hi, this is Jeff Foos back again with another lesson. Today's lesson is a request that I had on Facebook on syncopation for the drums. So I love this topic, so I was happy to do that. And so we'll mainly be talking about uh, different beat displaced things. We'll start on the pad and then we'll also move to the drum set to show how it can be utilized with the whole band and on different drums and cymbals. So the book I'll be working out of today is Progressive Steps for the Modern Drummer by Ted Reed on syncopation. And this is a great book. I've used this book with a couple students and it's very beneficial and has really helped them. So basically what syncopation is, for anybody's introduction into it, is accenting different beats in rhythms that aren't normally accented. So normally down beats would be accented, but here, so in other words, 1, 2, 3, or 4. But here we'll take a look at accenting the ands of eighth notes. So, and these can be either swung or straight. We'll start straight for now just to do a more simplified version of it. But, so we'll start, if you have this book, if you were looking at getting into this already, it's on page 33 of the book, so you can follow along as we play today. So, line 1 of the syncopation page, first syncopation page, is where beat 2 is there's a rest on it. It's an eighth note rest. So you'll play the and of 2, but not beat 2. So that would sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And for any of you who have the book, there's 3 measures on each line, and it's all the same measure on each line, but they show you 3 different ways that it could be written out. So the first one is just an eighth note rest. The second one is a tie note, and then the third one is an eighth note and a quarter note close together, with the with beat 2 being implied that it's a rest. So those are the 3 different ways that it could be written out. Generally, you'll find that it's example 1, which is just an eighth note rest on beat 2. So this is actually an older book, so they have ways that it used to be more commonly written out, but the first example on each line is the more modern way it's written. So then the second line moves to an eighth note rest on beat 3. So that would be 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So beat 3 is out, so you'll see the eighth note rest there. Then line 3 moves to an eighth note rest on beat 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Line 4 is where 2 and beat 2 and beat 4 have eighth note rests. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and. Line 5 is where beats 2, 3, and 4 all have eighth note rests. So that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and. Line 6 is where beat 1 and beat 2 have an eighth note rest. So that will be 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Line 7 is where beat 2 and beat 3 have an eighth note rest. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Line 8 is where beat 3 and 4 have an eighth note rest. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Line 9 is where beats 1, 2, and 3 have eighth note rests. So that would be 1 and 2, 3, and 4. Line 10 is where 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have rest. So you'll just be playing on the upbeat or offbeat eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Line 11 is beat 1 and beat 2 are out. So 1 and 2, 3, 4. And then lastly, line 12, beats 3 and 4 are out. So that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the first page, and you can just go over this until you feel really comfortable. And this is just the basics. Like I said, this is introductory to syncopation, so this is as easy as it will get. Some of the syncopation gets really crazy later on, but these are just all downbeat eighth note rests that you're out on. So I just wanted to give you an introduction and just kind of show you how that will be applied on the pad. And then, like I said, we will also do drum set versions of a lot of these exercises too. So I hope that helped, and happy practicing. So now we're on the drum set talking about syncopation, and I won't really go through many of the measures because we already went straight through them on the pad, but a good place to start with syncopation on the whole kit is in a rock beat. So normally a typical rock beat would be 2 and 4 on the snare, so which would just a basic rock beat would be but this is where beat 2, instead of beat 2, you would play the and of 2 and then beat 4 on the snare. So that would be a basic example of using syncopation in a rock beat. And if you put that on the ride cymbal, Coldplay is a rock band that does a lot of this. So it's become kind of a thing now more in rock music. As far as the drum set, a lot of gospel drummers play offbeat syncopated things in their fills. That's a big thing, or as cymbal crashes. So a lot of times they'll play like on the ands of a beat, so in a fill. So in other words, it would be something like this. So that's putting it on, like, putting the crashes on the end of 3 and 4. And a big application of this, like I said, when we were on the pad, you can really use a lot of this for swing things. So the first example I showed you was in a rock beat, which is straight, just that type of thing. So if you swing it, if you play different patterns, like either for soloing or like a using it like in a jazz context, playing with a band, a lot of what you do with the left hand is syncopation. So in rock, as I said, a typical beat is just on 2 and 4. Well, with jazz, nothing's really on the typical 2 and 4, so you might have, and it's all improvised, so they don't really have, you're not really following a book like the syncopation book, following a specific order, but their left hand is always moving, and a lot of times it's hitting what one of the other band members is doing, because there's a lot of syncopation going on with the whole band. So you might have just a basic example, here's playing the snare on the upbeats, so along with the jazz ride pattern. So that's an example of using it on the upbeats between, or actually I should say after 2 and 4. So so it would be 1, 1, a 2, 3, a 4, 1, a 2, 3, a 4. So the 2 and 4 would normally come after that. So that's a really simple example. You can also syncopate triplets, which we'll get into more in depth later, but I'll just show you an example of what that would sound like. So basically, you can accent the middle and last triplet as you're playing the jazz ride pattern. So that would be, you start out here. So that's an example of it in a jazz context. The rock context is more straight, and it's used more in the actual beat as a beat than it is for like more syncopated fills. But but that's a big one for rock. The and of 2 and 4, and then you can also put it on the 2 and the and of 3. So that would be. So that's just some simple and practical examples of that make really good rock beats and a little bit of jazz too. The next lesson, when we're on the full kit, I'll get into more of how gospel drummers use syncopation, like I showed you in that beginning example. So I hope that helped, and happy practicing.